guys, welcome to my channel. So this video is going to be about my birth story and how I went into labor, how I did it without my family. I didn't have anybody over here, and what I expected and what didn't happen and all that good stuff. So let's get to it. I went in to the doctors, let's say, I don't really remember specific dates, but let's say like on a Thursday. And when I went in, they were like, oh, well, you're 3 centimeters dilated. What? Because I was thinking that I had to feel everything when you dilated. I didn't know that you just dilated. They say, yeah, you're already having contractions. I did not feel them at all. I had no idea. And I was like, okay. So they were like, but you know, since you're only 3 centimeters, here they take you when you're 6 centimeters, or your contractions are like really close, or it's like a special reason. So I was like, okay, when I start feeling them, do I need to go ahead and go up there? And they were like, no, don't worry about it. So anyways, the next week, I want to say it was like a Friday, I went and had my membrane sweep. There we go. And that night at around 1, I really started feeling contractions, and I won't say that they hurt, because they didn't. They were there. I noticed them more than I did, but they weren't like making me lose my breath or anything. I could still breathe, I could still talk, I was good. But I was scared that I was going to fly through my dilation and have my baby outside, because I had already gotten to 3-4 centimeters without feeling any contractions. And so my contractions were about 2 to 3 minutes apart, and they weren't hard though. So anyways, I ended up going in, and they were like, oh, you're almost a 5, like you need to go walk for 2 hours. And I was like, okay. So a friend of mine was with me, my husband was at work, and we walked for 2 hours, and I will not lie to you, I was twerking down the hallways like that Baby Mama song. Yes, girl, I owned that song walking down those hallways. It was so funny. And I was doing squats, lunges, everything. I was doing everything that you can think of. I was doing everything. And I went back in there 2 hours later, and they were like, you haven't moved. And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding? Like, I'm feeling these contractions. And I was like, okay. By this time, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. And my husband's there, and they send us home. So we go home, and I try to go to sleep. I actually went to sleep, but then got woke up at 10 by harder contractions, and these contractions were more, I could still talk and breathe, but it was like harder to walk. But they weren't hurting yet. And so anyways, I woke up my husband, and I was like, hey, I think we need to go back. And he was like, are you for real? Are you sure? And I was like, yeah, we need to go. Like, and then, this is TMI, but then I had lost my mucus plug, and if you don't know what that is, look it up, because I'm not getting into all that. Anyways, I had lost that, and so then I was really nervous, because I was like, oh my gosh, like, I know that they say 24-48 hours, like, oh my gosh, what if my water breaks today, like right now? And so we ended up going back at like 10, and they were like, you're still almost a 5, but you're not a 5 yet. And I was like, oh my God, oh, come on. And so they were like, go walk for 2 hours. So we go walk for 2 hours. By this point, like, I can't twerk anymore. There's no twerking going on. There's no twerking, there's no squats. Well, there was squats, but they were hard. They were hard to squat, because I thought that I was going to literally have my baby right there in the hallway. And so anyways, we did that for 2 hours. We went and ate, and we went back, and they checked me, and they were like, you still haven't moved. Like, are you kidding me? Like, these contractions are so hard now that I cannot walk. So, like, I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to keep having to go home, come back, because we lived like 30 minutes to an hour away from the hospital. And so they were like, well, we don't want to send you home yet, so we're going to see if we can make room for you. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. Okay. And they're like, we're going to put you on, what is it called? So it's the morphine. They were like, we're going to put you on morphine, because either 1, it's going to stop you from dilating, or 2, it will speed up the process. And either way, I didn't really have, like, if it would have stopped me, it was no big deal, because I wasn't really progressing anyways. So I was on morphine from like 8 p.m. They ended up putting me on morphine. That was and I had been there since 10 a.m. At 10 p.m. I got on morphine, and then I was on morphine until about midnight, and they came in to check me. Still had not dilated, and so they were like, well, we're going to put you back on the monitors and check you for a little while. Okay, so they put me back on the monitors for 20 minutes, and she came in there, and one of the ladies was like, we're going to have to go ahead and send you home. You know, we don't have room, and you're not progressing at all. And I started crying, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm not in that much pain yet still, but it hurts whenever I do start walking. Like, it does hurt, and I don't want to have to keep going through this process and then come back home and go back to the hospital. Like, I was exhausted. I was ready to get this over with and get it started at least. Well, I was started, but I was ready to, like, be admitted. And so, anyways, 20 minutes later, she came in, she checked me, and, you know, they have to flip you and all this to make sure that they're getting the baby's heartbeat and the baby moves away from the monitor and all this. So, anyways, she had come in there and moved me, and then 20 minutes later, she moved me again, and they just kept doing that for, like, 2 hours. And I was like, man, like 2 hours ago they were supposed to let me go home. Well, finally they come in there, and it's like 3 nurses that have been, 2 nurses and 1 doctor. The doctor who had actually did my membrane sweep earlier, like that past Friday. Oh, she actually had swept me again this time before I had walked. Anyways, and they all came in there like, so you're staying. And I was like, oh, are you serious? Like, I started freaking out, like, oh my gosh, yay. And so, but the doctor, that had me, she was like, but I'm going to break your water. And I was like, okay, does it hurt? Like, I don't know. Because in my mind, when I'm thinking of labor, I'm thinking of what everybody has said and how bad it's gonna hurt and how terrible it is and all this. And so anyways, we get in there, and it's like 3 a.m. the next day, and she breaks my water. Total relief. Like, I'm so glad that happened at the hospital and not out in public somewhere. And my thing was, I did not want to be hooked up to the bed the entire time I was in labor. So she put me on the ball, and I was on the ball for 3 hours, well, 2.5, and I was having contractions, breathing through them. Everything was good. I was like listening to music. My husband and me were just talking, no big deal. Then I had 3 contractions that were so bad I barely could breathe. It was like, oh god. So I hit my little call button. I was like, I need the epidural like right now. And so they brought that anesthesiologist in, and he gave me my epidural, which does not hurt at all for me. Anyways, it did not hurt. They stick that in. He had it wrong. He had to take it back out, put it back in. It was a mess. Finally, it kicked in like 2 hours later, so I could still feel everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is hurting so bad. Like, I've got to be dilated way further than what I was. Like, this is terrible. Well, she checks me, and she's like, oh, well, the reason it's hurting so bad is because usually people already have their epidural, and you just got it, and he's going through your canal. Like, what? Holy crap, that hurts. Like, that pelvic pain is no joke. That is worse than any contraction I had ever felt in my life. And anyways, at 6 o'clock, I was 6 centimeters. Well, then they were supposed to come in and check me at 7, and they never did. Just the shift change kind of just messed everybody up. So at 9 o'clock, she comes in, and she's like preparing me, and she was like, I'm going to check you again, but I'm just letting you know, just in case no nurses told you, any of the other nurses haven't told you yet. First-time moms are usually in here for 24 to 48 hours. And I was like, yeah, it's all right. No big deal. And I wasn't hurting. Of course, I had the epidural, so I wasn't hurting at all. And she checks me, and she was like, are you ready to push? And I was like, what? Like, my best friend had just gotten there because she wanted to bring us breakfast. So my husband and my best friend are over in the corner eating. And I'm just sitting there, and she's like, he's right here. His head is just right here. And I'm like, oh my god, what's going on? So I like call my mom, and I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. It was crazy because I was like freaking out because I'm like, oh my god, like, this is real. I'm about to be a mom. Like, this is happening. And anyways, tell my husband, and he's like freaking out. And so I have to wait 45 minutes for my birth photographer to get there because she lives like 45 minutes away from the hospital. So we're waiting, and no big deal. I have the epidural, you know, I'm not feeling anything. But it's so hard because I had so much of that medicine that it was so hard to stop and not do anything. It was so hard. And because your body just naturally wants to, you know, get the baby out. Well, anyways, so we're sitting there, and then finally she's like, coping me, and she's like, okay, well, just so you know, like, when you do start pushing, it's probably going to be anywhere between like 6 hours to 10 hours pushing for first-time moms, or 3 hours to 10 hours, whatever she had said. And I was like, okay, you know, like, I'm seriously not thinking about anything. Like, nothing is going through my head. It's like blank. The only thing is just like, you're about to be a mom. This is really happening. This is really happening. You're about to push a baby out of your vagina. Like, that is what's going through my head. And so I'm sitting there and I'm just like, she's talking and she's like, I don't even know what she's saying. And anyways, then finally my birth photographer gets there and she's like, okay, we're gonna do 3 practice pushes. Okay. She's like, can you feel your contractions? Nope. Okay, well, I'll tell you when to push. Okay. So she tells me, and I'm pushing, don't even know where I'm pushing, I'm just pushing. And she's like, okay, stop. And I was like, what? She's like, his hand's right there. His hand is like coming out. And I had the mirror, so I got to see everything, which is actually really cool. It's not gross at all. It's nothing like what you think, because before I was like, oh, that's disgusting. I would never do that. No, it is not disgusting at all. Like, you don't even think about that being nasty at all. And anyway, so then the doctor comes in. 20 minutes later, my baby is out. He is out. Like, 3 pushes, I was done. And, well, 3 pushes after the first practice 3. And so, anyways, they're like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know how that happened. Like, usually first time moms are doing this forever, My labor was super, super, super easy. Pregnancy was not. Labor, easy. So, yeah, it was not quite as what I expected at all. I was expecting it to be hardcore and hurt, and it did not. Epidural did not hurt at all. It was really tough doing it without my family there, especially my postpartum / breastfeeding video that you'll see after this video. You'll see exactly what I went through, and hopefully I won't cry, because it is very difficult doing this without family, especially your mom. Coming from a girl whose mom is her best friend, it's really hard without having your mom there to be with you through the pushes. Like, I had my best friend, thankfully, who stayed in the room and got to see it all and talk to me, and she, like, still was just like, oh my gosh, that is so amazing. Like, I had my husband who was there the entire time, thank goodness. Like, poor thing, he's like never been around infants at all. His first infant that he was around was actually one of my other friends' baby that made him decide he wanted kids, and now we have ours, and he's just like, oh, he's amazing with them. But when we were there, it was just like, I was like by myself. Like, when I was pushing, I didn't know where I was pushing because I had so much epidural. Like, next time I'm probably not gonna get the epidural stuff early, because I was pushing and they were like, can you push right here? No, I can't even feel your hands. So that was pretty tough. I couldn't push the way where I needed to push, so I was just kind of hoping I was pushing in the right direction. I don't know. And yeah, it was crazy. It was like, I can't tell you what was going through my head, because literally nothing was going through my head. I wasn't thinking about a thing. Like, they placed this baby in my arm, and I was just like, this is mine. What am I doing? And when they first put him on my chest, he was not breathing, so I was like freaking out, and I was like, breathe, like constant like slapping his back. Like, I was, oh, the nurses were like all on top of me, like trying to get him to breathe too, and I was just like, back up, let me do it. I don't know, there was nothing going through my brain at all. Like, every push that they were telling me to push, like, I wasn't thinking anything. I was just thinking nothing, like, push. I will tell you that this one thing I read before I went to labor, which I will never, I was told not to read anything, and I regret reading stuff. There was this thing going on Facebook that was this mom who went into labor, and she wasn't able to do it. She was trying to do it naturally and ended up having like a VBAC and stuff, and like all this crazy stuff happened. They used like, or maybe it wasn't a VBAC, they used like forceps and then a VBAC, something like that. Anyways, there was this loud pop noise and ended up being like the baby's skull. So while I'm pushing, I hear this pop noise and I have no idea what it is. So I just stopped, and it's like the whole room was just paused. Like, nobody said anything, nobody did nothing. It was just quiet. And then all of a sudden everybody's like, no, push. What? Like, they tell me later that it was his hands that came out, and then after that, like, I'm still like, blah, 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 that's all I can hear. I can't hear anybody say anything to me. So I had to ask my husband later on, like, what did that doctor say? When is he coming back? Like, what? Yeah, but that's my story.